PPRTA Board of Directors Wednesday, July 13th meeting. We have quorum. We do have we have no reason to have an executive session, so if we would like to approve the agenda, striking the executive session, and item 13 will actually be an information item, not an approval item.
So move.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. This would be for items not on the agenda. Anyone in the audience would like to bring an item before us that is not on today's agenda? Seeing none. Item number 4. Resolution of appreciation for former board director Amy Lathan. Would you like to come to the mic? Uh-oh. And I still think she stopped and looked for her name on that table.
Stick with that. Stick with that.
Your clue should have been that you didn't get a packet. Oh, okay. So I move the following resolution by the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors acknowledging appreciation to El Paso County Director Amy Lathan, July 13, 2016. Whereas El Paso County is a member government of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority, and whereas Amy Lathan served as an El Paso County Commissioner from 2008 until 2016, when she served as board director at the Pikes Peak RTA, including a board vice chair in 2013 and board chair in 2014. And whereas El Paso County Director Amy Lathan has served the citizens of El Paso County and the Pikes Peak region with distinction. Now therefore be it resolved, the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board of Directors wishes to acknowledge their deepest gratitude to El Paso County Director Amy Lathan for her commitment to regional transportation planning and projects, for her wise counsel, and for her dedication to the advancement of the transportation projects of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. Resolved, approved, and adopted by the Board of Directors of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority this 13th day of July, 2016 at Colorado Springs, Colorado. Dennis Izey, Chair. Attested to by Robert McDonald, Board Secretary. I have a second. Thank you.
Even though we don't like it, we'll second. Well, thank you.
So, comment?
It's just, I don't know what this thought process is after leaving elected office and being officially free of elected office. There's some sort of I don't know if it's the honeymoon period or what it is, but I'm extraordinarily honored to have this and to have served both here and, of course, with El Paso County. The kind of transportation, is this on? There we go. The kinds of, it was a little green there. The transportation issues that we deal with here, and of course that we all deal with respectively in our jurisdictions, are so important to the citizens of this entire region. They are so important to economic development, individuals who then have jobs to support themselves, all of those things that are interconnected. And it is a great honor to be able to work on those kinds of transportation issues. And of course, PPRTA has been absolutely an extraordinary success. And we know that we have gained the trust of the citizens. I hope that will always be something that PPRTA keeps in mind, to keep that trust, to keep the promise that was made, to adhere to the ballot and to the wishes of the citizens and build great infrastructure. And to have been a part of that is tremendous. I'm very, very honored. And I'm very excited that in my new role, one of our pillars is transportation and infrastructure, and we will be working with a number of entities as we go forward to advance more transportation initiatives and be a part of that. So I'm
excited to be able to move forward with many of the same folks and working on many of the same projects and hopefully continuing to do as much as we can for this region for infrastructure and economic development. So I'm very, very grateful, and I'm going to miss everybody. And this is the best meeting of all. We have a lot of meetings, we know. Nobody has snacks like PPRTA.
Yes.
No, that's absolutely right.
Dennis?
No, I was
Oh, pointing to our
just to our snack
factor
gal
there.
over there, yes.
You know, the one line in here that I thought just kind of summed it all up. Deepest gratitude to El Paso County Director Amy Lathan for her commitment to regional transportation planning and projects. Your commitment to regionalism and making it work for all of the citizens, all of the entities, you have never wavered in that. So
Thank you. And I won't. I just had a discussion with some of my new colleagues. Of course, it's Colorado Springs forward, but we recognize it as the entire region, and we will behave as such because regional is so key in what we're doing, and so that will always be the case.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have to vote on this?
Yeah, I hope we do.
Well, we'll take the vote and then we'll present
Okay.
all those in favor say aye.
I'm going to vote by standing.
Oh. Obviously, the motion carried.
A close majority.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your hard hat with your name on it. Who has a camera?
Right here.
Okay. Sally, can you,
Always got the camera.
Rick,
I'm so glad.
you should join in this.
Let me tell you, transferring offices is terrible because my cell phone doesn't work right now, so I'm glad.
Rick?
Yeah, you. Yes.
Well, Rick's coming. So that's going to mess up your balance.
I'm sure Sally got it, but I'll just.
That's all right.
Just in case.
The backup, the backup.
I know how to get it.
Now you gotta put it on.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it'll, I've got a clip in my hair. We'll see if it fits over there.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
there you go. Yeah.
Close enough.
All right, close enough. There we go.
All right.
Did you want a group picture?
I'd love one if you.
I don't dare talk again because I'll start crying. So, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I had some emotional
No,
moments.
So, do we all fit in this corner?
Yeah, I'll get in the back.
All the elected officials.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of those taller ones.
Squeeze.
Sure.
That's right.
That's right.
This close.
You gotta get in here, Rev, are you kidding? Come on,
Let's go, buddy.
you get in.
The one they're honoring, and she says you need to.
That's right.
You need to get in.
Citizens are the most.
Beauty before age.
That's why she's on it. Oh, my gosh, now it's a big picture.
You're already a good training.
That'll be on the next PPRTA magazine.
Yeah.
So,
Hey. It'll be on the monthly calendar.
There it is? Okay.
We should have a, yeah. Think that'd work? Yeah. It is, yeah.
Ms. Lathan,
Yes.
you're welcome to stay.
Well, I appreciate
However,
That I have a board meeting with my new board, so I do have to bug off. I might stay for a few minutes, but God bless you guys.
Just harassing
everybody.
you.
thank you.
I was. I'm going to comment on every item you have.
Just to keep the record.
Item number 5 would be the approval of the minutes from the June 8th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 would be the Citizens Advisory Committee monthly report. Reb Williams.
Good afternoon, board members, my name is Rick Williams, Vice Chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee. There was a public comment during the public comment period by Mr. Rick Hoover with CTAB, asking that all city and county staff, all member government staffs, when a completed project, major completed project is made, make sure it's published as such as a PPRTA project. Or PPRTA.
Hey, is your mic on, Rob? I can't hear you. Maybe it's 'cause
You're the one that sat over there.
I'm far away, yeah.
I just turned it back on, I'm sorry.
Go.
If I can't hear, they can.
Do I have to repeat that?
No.
Good. There was monthly financial reports Bev gave. There was information only and no comments to forward to the board. The budget amendment for fiscal year 2016, a motion to approve the City of Colorado Springs section of the budget amendment failed on a vote of 5 yes, 11 no, and 1 abstention. And it was approved a motion on that another vote, 15, 1, and 1, to recommend to the board that the board approve the entire capital section of the City of Colorado Springs budget except the $1 million addition for this pedestrian bridge over the railroad tracks. There was concerns about several things, and it was just recently brought to my attention so that you are aware of it. When I say brought to my attention, our chairman called me this morning, and we had a 45-minute discussion. He is in Utah. There was apparently an article that I have not read either in the Gazette that implies that PPRTA is funding a bridge for C. It's an implication, and I haven't read it, so I'm just making you aware of it. There was also an issue, we weren't aware of a $3.5 million commitment at the beginning of the year. There was a $1,021,000 commitment approved by the board for the budget, and they had added another $1 million in this and have implied that there's about $1,479,000 to come. We don't understand it, so there was no approval. City of Colorado Springs contracts, the board, the CAC, approved or recommended approval of contracts 9, 10, and 11 in your list. And that was an 11-4 vote. And that contracts 1 through 8 be tabled until the August cycle of meetings to receive more information or clarification from the city staff. Those 8 contracts have the word stormwater in them, number 1. And number 2, if you read it from the perception of the public, they total $24 million. When I say that, they are asking for 2 things, $500,000 task orders totaling to 8 different contractors, for a total of each one being $3 million. So without clarification, you don't know. That's not to say that they're going to spend $24 million or anything like that or asking permission, just that it's not very clear. El Paso County contracts, they approved a positive recommendation to the board for 3 contracts as presented with no additional comments. City of Colorado Springs Transit Services, it was information only. There were no comments to the board, just encouraging them to go forward with their relocation of their, I don't know, main station or downtown transfer station. They're looking at various properties, and they have several public meetings scheduled to get input from the public. The El Paso County monthly change order and property acquisition report was information only and no comments to the board. City of Colorado Springs monthly change order and property acquisition report was information only and no comments. Report of recent board actions was given by Mr. Sonnenberg, and it was information only. There were no comments. No comments on the staff fuel review, and there were no topics picked by us to go forward to the next agenda meeting. Are there any questions?
Questions?
That's great.
Thank you.
I move to accept the Citizens Advisory Committee monthly report.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, financial reports. Welcome, Beverly.
Good afternoon. As you can see, with the May's sales and use tax, we received $7,844,000, which was $746,000 ahead of the monthly budget. Last month, we were at 190 ahead, but 400,000 from this month belonged in last month. It was held over, so we received it this month, but it was for last month. So kind of evens out those numbers a little bit more.
Do you know if that's on the Department of Revenue side or on the vendor side?
I believe it's on the Department of Revenue side. It was the use tax on vehicles that El Paso County remits to the Department of Revenue, and then they remit it to us. And I checked on it last month, and the Department of Revenue was aware that it didn't get into our report. So I think that it's on their side. So we're 10.5% ahead for the month and 7.4 for the year ahead of budget. Of course, when we get to the budget, we added sales and use tax to the amended budget, so it'll take care of some of that. On page 2, we're $2,033,000 ahead of last year so far through May, or 6%. And pages 3 through 5 just reflects the sales and use tax numbers in an income statement format. And then any of the items that are line items that are over budget are only look over budget because the carryover from last year far exceeds the numbers that they look like they're over budget. So that'll also be taken care of in the amended budget process.
Very good.
Are there any questions?
Looking good. So we will
Chair?
move. Yes.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say, since I've been gone, you guys have raised a lot more money. So glad to be back and that we're looking so healthy, and that we'll also keep the money with regard to the issue that came up with regard to Fountain recently too, in the legislature, that we were able to keep those dollars that were coming in from that shopping center down south. So thanks, Beverly, and thanks for the good news.
Thank you.
Beverly, as the guru who knows all things spreadsheet, we have a question. What does the EIVOI mean?
That's because there isn't a number that you're dividing it by, so it gives that sign. So say in that
Here's your
transit advertising revenue, there isn't a budget. It doesn't know what to do with it. And so that's an Excel expression of saying, well, you can't divide by 0. Now, we take the transit advertising revenue out, like let's just use that one as an example because that's the first one that does that. And we report it, the actual, but the budget reports it as a total included in the public transportation fare revenue. So
Okay.
is that just... That's the symbol of saying you can't divide by 0. Now, when we put the amended budget in here, we'll have budgets for a lot of these.
Okay, yep,
So that'll take care of a lot of that.
okay, cool, thank you.
We have that problem at the beginning of the year because we're still spending last year's dollars on a carryover that's not included in this year's budget.
Very good. Item number 8, draft amendment to the fiscal year 2016 budget.
Okay, I'll go over a really quick overview, and then the city and county are here to go over their budgets. The smaller member governments might not be here today, but if you have any questions, I'm pretty familiar with their memos, and some of it's really self-explanatory, so depending on if you have any questions. And then, so today, we'll have both the workshop for the board and the public hearing. So the chair will open the public hearing towards the end of this and then take any public comments and close the public hearing. And then we'll be asking for signature on the resolution to approve the budget and appropriate the funds. So that's all today, whereas normally we divide that into 2 meetings. But last month, there were a lot of members that weren't here, so we want to do it all today. Okay? In the amended budget, the first page just goes over the actual revenue and expense compared to the budget last year. And it shows where we're ahead of budget last year, so where this amended budget, we allocate the excess funding. So gross sales and use tax were over by $5 million. Interest earnings were over by $100,000. Administrative expenses were under by $41,000, and that gets added back and allocated to transit maintenance and capital. And then transit farebacks and advertising revenue was over by $7,000. Then the bottom of that page, 1, allocates it to transit maintenance and capital by their percentages, and then by the census percentages for maintenance. And we use approximately those same percentages for the capital, just at this point of the process, because that's the best way to do it. But towards the end of the A-list, we have to finish the A-list projects for all member governments before we go on to the B-list. So page 2 then shows where we have $3 million in additional sales and use taxes for 2016 that we're adding to this amended budget. And then I take out the reserve adjustment, and this amended budget has an additional $100,000 in admin expenditures, and that is for the lawsuit and going to the legislature. A lot of legal fees and staff time was used and will be used through September or so, maybe longer, to resolve the issue with Walmart. And going from there, the next few pages by column just starts out with the 2015 unspent expenditures for like capital and maintenance, and then the revenue carryover, and then additional revenue for 2016, then the original budget, any line item transfers for a total. And it just shows it, like page 4, you can see line item transfers, especially in the City of Colorado Springs initial A-list projects. We're just keeping track of what the balance is that will eventually then, after it's approved, get put into the financial statement, so we have a budget for each of those items. And then that all ends up on page 6, that we have a total expenditure budget of, for projects and transportation expenses, of $203 million. And that includes this year's revenue and any carryovers from prior years. The pages after that are the member governments pages, and then on page 23, I'll wait till y'all get to that page. I want to talk about this page a little bit. In 2012, the initial, or the renewal A-list was put together by the member governments, and they estimated an original cost. And the cost is just that, a real estimate. There's no planning to back up the numbers, no design. So the member governments are going to be proposing increases to those initial budgets. I have this in here today, but by approving the budget, I'm not asking that you approve page 23 and 24. What we want to do is come back to the CAC and the board with some revised estimates, probably not for every line item because some of them are still not very far along, and we'll have some verbiage to go with the spreadsheet that describes why the member government staff thinks that these estimates are going up. Now, the revenue has, when it was initially the revenue's gone up 29%. So there's been inflation on the cost side, and we've received a lot more revenue. So it makes sense that this is going to happen. It's just that we'd like the board and the CAC to see it and have explanations and then vote on that. Okay. All right, so then if the city would like to come up and...
Well, we see who got the short straw.
Good afternoon. Lan Rail Transit Services Finance Administrator. Just did a quick coordination within the city. Craig is out sick today, so I'm presenting the transit budget for the fall, for the budget amendment. The majority, so you will see two copies, 2 pages in your packet. One is the memo, and one is all the numbers with line details. So really, the memo is the easier one to read. What we are
Do we
doing.
know what page? So, thank you.
Thank you. So the memo basically summarizes all the funding sources in this budget amendment and why we will be able to propose the following service changes is because of those additional revenue savings in the expenditure line account numbers and additional projection for this year. So we are looking at about $1.4 million total to be included in this budget amendment. Out of the $1.4 million, majority of them are because of the additional tax revenue that we have received last year or we are projecting in this year. In addition to that, we have seen a little extra fare box revenue. What we do see, the last 2 lines, these are basically the changes. That's the changes from what we initially estimated in the original budget for 2016, and these are either more or less compared to our estimates. So how we plan to spend the $1.4 million is basically in 2 different ways. One is to include additional proposed transit services improvements starting this fall. That includes adding frequency on Saturday for 2 routes, one on Pikes Peak and one on Academy. And also we are adding additional service on Route 39 on Saturday. We're also proposing to increase evening and Sunday service on Route 4, which is the 8th Street to Broadmoor. So those service changes will be presented by Brian Votuli later on in our transit update, and he will also give you more detailed information on our proposed fall service changes. In addition to the additional service changes we're proposing here, we also allocated a portion of the additional tax revenue for the HSP providers, basically the specialized transportation providers. What you see in the spreadsheet under specialized transportation service, that's the $35,000 we're adding to their line. In addition to the total budget in PPRTA, we also have $392,000 in the city's general fund budget for specialized transportation services. There is $100,000 line that's being carried over from last year to this year. That is due to the delay of the call center, consolidated call and dispatch center for all HSPs. The initial projected timeline was we were going to implement that project back in July, but because of the technology, all the details that we're trying to figure out, so now the revised target date is January 1 next year. So that's why we're carrying over that $100,000 still allocated for the call center effort. That's why it shows up as another carryover. For the additional services that we're proposing, we do propose to budget and make sure we have funding for 5 years, so we don't run into the situation that we're adding service and then we're cutting down the road. So we want to make sure that it is included in the budget proposal. Any questions?
Yes, Mayor.
So how do you determine which routes, and maybe this is going to come when Brian speaks, but how do you determine which routes are going to be expanded as the ones you have here in the budget?
Yeah, Brian should be able to cover that more, but in general, we have 2040 plan that we adopted, and we also have a shorter range. In that plan, we have long range, short range, and we also have a 3 to 5 year transit plan where we constantly update. And we receive public comments from public meetings, from comment cards, from surveys, from people calling to either complain or recommend, so we do keep track of those information.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, over here.
I have no sympathy for you sitting over there.
Just a couple questions in terms of the numbers 1 through 4 that you said that you were going to use that $1.4 million for. How does that break out per route? Do you have those figures? Is
yes,
it
we
the
do.
total 1.433779 to maintain the service improvements for at least 5 years? So how much is each of those costing the city?
Actually, if you look at this numbers sheet, there are two main categories. The middle column is the $1.4 million number. The top section says revenue. That's how we came up with the $1.4 million. And then the lower portions that says grant match expenditure and operating expenditure. Those are the two categories how we're spending that. The $730,730 under grant match, those are the local match that we have budgeted for the grants that we already received. We obligated those projects, but we haven't completed projects yet. Examples of those capital projects are vehicle purchase. So those have a really long time frame to wait on the bus delivery, so we have to make sure we have funding in place before we place the order. Then it takes 18 months to receive the vehicles and pay them. So that's why we have a carryover in there. And then the lower portion, $703,000 is how we spend the rest of the 1.4. 100 is for the HSP call center, 35,000 is for additional HSP operating, and the rest of the 567 pays for fixed route ADA fuel, for fixed route fuel for maintenance for 5 years. So
I guess
close to 5 years.
maybe I didn't phrase this the way I needed to try and understand it, in terms of how much per each of the numbers is been allocated out of the amendment. Do you understand what I'm saying? For the routes that you're.
We have estimated.
Maybe that's a Brian question because he's coming up here.
Sure. We have estimated revenue service hours for each service, and based on how many days of the year we would be running that service, then we look at how much it costs us to run the service. Is it a fixed route? Is it a fixed route plus ADA? So we have different cost component for each type of service.
And I get that. I'm just trying to figure out if you're sliding over part of the amended budget into these routes, how much of that is going into each of these route improvement services. And I think along the same lines of the mayor's question is, trying to decide which routes you add more service to. So maybe that's Brian, do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
We do. We have a.
Because this is kind of like a lump sum of saying, here's what we're spending on 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I don't know how that's broken out per.
Right. We do have a very colorful, detailed spreadsheet with all of the service improvements that we're planning for the spring and the fall for the years coming ahead. We don't have that with us now, but we can provide that to Rick to send out. So, for instance, the Saturday fixed route bus frequency updates, item number 1 there. That's going to probably be the most costly item. And weekday evening, it's only 3 additional hours for those 5 weekdays. That's going to be one of the,
Okay.
you know,
Anything
least
that will
expensive
serve
ones.
any parts of the unincorporated county that are on the additional amendments? Potentially, maybe the Pikes Peak Community College, but probably not. That's not unincorporated.
Well, yeah, the Route 27 traveling down to PPCC, that would be the closest probably to the unincorporated areas of the county.
Okay. Just want to make sure that we're looking at the whole system and not just the city limits, although I understand, you know, part of this. This is PPRTA dollars, so
Right.
we need to look at that regional piece of
Right.
it. And then the second question I had, let's see, where was my, oh, the call center delay. Can you explain why? I mean, it seems like this is the song that just goes on and on and on. And I mean, we've been talking about this for years and years, as long as I think I've been here. What's the delay in not getting it done in July, which was the original plan, and now we're pushing it out to January
Sure.
again?
I think this really probably PPACG would be in a better position to answer that question. But we have been involved in the process, so I'll just speak from our side. The delay is pretty much, I mean, there are multiple players and trying to figure out a brand new system. So the initial plan for the route match software was to have separate, more partitioned database for each provider, and then for each provider to be able to see other people's rights. But somewhere along that project, people are trying to make sure that we can achieve the efficiency and effectiveness that we initially envisioned for this project. And based on consultants' recommendation and the group discussion, eventually the group decided the best way to get there is to, instead of having separate modules, the best way is to consolidate all modules into one database. So there is a change in the detailed software implementation that delayed the process.
Is it the same software company, though, that's doing it?
It's the same software, yeah.
Okay.
It's the same software. But it's people trying to understand, learn new system, and trying to figure out the best
And
way
training is
forward.
part of that
Yes.
system integration as well for all the different providers? Okay.
The questions? Thank you. Brian?
Thank you.
I can answer Mayor Nicoletta's question right now, if you'd like.
Okay.
The way we determine.
We'll open the public hearing a little later in this presentation.
So the way we determine, what services to add to what routes, as Lan mentioned, we're awaiting new fixed route buses that we expect to receive late next year. So we can't really add any peak service during weekday peak time. So what we can do is, with our existing fleet, is add weekday evening and Saturday and Sunday services. And, Route 4 and Route 39, these are services that we've received comments from the public on. These are routes that serve high employment areas, a lot of call centers along Route 39 in the northern part of the city. And so they were logical next steps. And some of these routes had fairly good weekday ridership also. So they kind of met the threshold to add service for weekday evenings or Saturdays and Sundays. Route 4, for instance, serves the 8th Street corridor, which doesn't have service on Sundays. So this will be a big improvement there. Okay, great. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So staying with the city, Mike, you have the next.
Good afternoon, Mike Chavez, City Engineering. I'll be speaking on pages 9 and 10. And basically, on page 10, there's a total revenue allocation of $3,066,000. That's the additional revenue that we are looking at allocating to projects according to the table there. So we're looking at putting $500,000 into the Centennial Extension for right-of-way acquisition, We had 1.9 million slated before for design. In the emergency bridge fund, we want to put 766,000 into construction. We have 2 bridges that we're designing and looking at bidding this fall. And based on our cost estimates, we wanted to supplement those, the emergency bridge fund. Also looking at putting $1 million into the Pikes Peak corridor improvements for the pedestrian bridge. And then we opened bids on the Centennial reconstruction, and the prices were pretty high. So there's 2 things going on there. I'm requesting $800,000 of the supplemental revenue go in there, and also requesting a line item transfer from the Pikes Peak reconstruction into the Centennial to get us through the construction. We'll have to backfill Pikes Peak next year in 17 because we've been taking money out of that one. I did skip in the original RTA 05 to 14. We have some projects that are pretty much done. We're trying to do some final closeout. When we get all that closed out, we'll be coming back with some line item requests to move money out of those to other projects from the original A list. So if there's any questions on the capital side?
Mayor?
Yes, just as a newbie, if you would, please, Mike, explain the line item transfer of the $3 million. What does that mean exactly?
So we had approximately $7 million in 16 total for the Centennial reconstruction, and we had about $8 million in the Pikes Peak reconstruction. As we've been opening projects up, the Chestnut reconstruction came in a lot higher than we had originally estimated, and so did the Centennial reconstruction. What I've done is we've actually decreased the Pikes Peak budget this year because we are only in design, and we had $8 million there for construction, but we don't need it till next year. So we've decreased Pikes Peak and put those funds into other projects that are actually going to construction.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Okay. And then on the maintenance, we just allocated the $4 million to, we'll spread that out, according to our needs on the maintenance side.
I do have one question, though.
Yes, Councilman.
How does all these stormwater requests fit into the overall scheme of things?
Is that at this stage, or is that an agenda item coming up?
Are you talking about the contracts?
Yeah.
I can talk about that when it comes up.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That brings us apparently to El Paso County.
One more for Colorado Springs. I wanted to try to answer some questions about the Pikes Peak Greenway, which is for the pedestrian bridge at America the Beautiful Park. I think there's really 2 questions here. Is it a C4C project? And then what's the budget looking like, and how much of it is coming out of RTA or PPRTA or other city funds? So let's start with, is this a 2C project? Let me be clear, it's not. That the bridge was first mentioned in the master plan for the Pikes Peak Greenway about 22 years ago. It was mentioned a year after that in the master plan for America the Beautiful Park. It was mentioned then for every URA proposal that has been done for Southwest downtown area and included as part of their development plans. It was included in 2012, in spring of 2012, by the Urban Land Institute that came to town to do a major study on downtown redevelopment, and they called the building of an iconic bridge across the railroad tracks from Sierra Madre and Vermejo to America the Beautiful Park as one of the most important things that the city could do to preserve and improve development in downtown Colorado Springs. It was included in 2012 in the budget ballot items for PPRTA 2, and then after all that occurred, the C4C proposal came in at the end of 2012 with the concept of an Olympic museum at the corner of Vermejo and Sierra Madre. So I'm going to suggest to you that perhaps we are thinking of this backwards, that the pedestrian bridge is not a C4C project, but instead the Olympic Museum people in their site selection looked around and said, where's the potential for the most exciting connection between vehicular, bike, and pedestrian traffic, where we would really be seen and could take advantage of some of the beauty of downtown Colorado Springs, and they picked the corner of Vermejo and Sierra Madre as a good place to be. Am I upset that a C4C project is right on the corner of this pedestrian bridge? No. It's a wonderful use to go there, and it will really add to the use that the pedestrian bridge gets and help to bring a lot more people to that area of downtown. So for that, I'm very excited. I just wish it would stop being called a C4C project. And as far as the Gazette article goes, I hate to tell you this, but if you're going to start taking every piece of information you receive in the newspaper as the absolute truth, you're going to be really disappointed in life. So it was an error for the Gazette to say that and to say a number of things about this project. But this project has been in the works for the city of Colorado Springs since the mid-90s, so over 20 years. As far as the budget goes, when 2012 came along, we had absolutely no idea where this might go. And as I said, the Olympic Museum wasn't really in consideration even at that time. So we put $1 million into this as seed money so that we could at least get started with it. The choice of the museum going in has certainly caused us to want to move this project forward faster. It would be wonderful if this bridge and the museum were able to coincide and be built at the same time. We are spending that first $1 million on the design of this bridge. We are following the ULI recommendation and trying to make it an iconic bridge. But when we first started talking about this being an iconic bridge, city staff sort of went, we don't see PPRTA dollars as being iconic dollars. They're transportation dollars. And a pedestrian bridge there is definitely a transportation project, but not so much the iconic part of it. So the very first thing we did was a study with CPNY structural engineers to say if we were going to build our basic pedestrian bridge over those railroad tracks, what would it cost? The reason we wanted to know that is that this is not like the basic pedestrian bridge we build over Monument Creek that, cost under $1 million. This bridge is very long and very high in the air, and it has real difficulty getting it built without closing down the railroad yards of Colorado Springs, which we really can't do. It's a very complicated construction job. That information came back that we would probably need about $3.5 million to build a basic bridge. Since that time, city staff has been looking at that $3.5 million and saying, if we can find that money in various city budgets and plans, that's it. That's our max amount that we will use from the city. The iconic design cost estimate is looking at about $9.7 million for building the bridge. The rest of that money, that difference between $3.5 million and $9.7, is going to have to come from private or other grant sources. So just to give you a feel, so yes, put $1 million into it. I'm asking, because we have the revenue, to put another $1 million, just as we put increased revenue into other projects that we need to fund more completely, to make $2 million. If I can find room to add some more money in the upcoming year, I will, but know that city staff is limiting city participation to $3.5 million on this. And if private sources doesn't come through and we have to build sort of a regular bridge, that's probably what we'll do.
Councilmember Bennett?
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. I think you did a great job of explaining it, and it far preceded any concept of C4C. I guess the design of this bridge, I just wanted everyone to know, is designed and to follow after a model that's up in Denver. If you remember where Union Station was built, if you drive up the interstate, just kind of if my memory's right, it's kind of in between the aquarium and the
Spear. You'll see it in between the Auraria Parkway interchange and the Spear interchange.
Right, and that goes over the interstate. It's a similar type of concept because it has to be that high and that nature, but it's uniquely designed so that it is compatible with pedestrian traffic and bikes. The difference is you can't ride your bike up the stairs of it.
That's right.
Because there's a path to walk your bike next to stairs. So it makes it compatible with ADA
Yes.
compliance and as well as bikes being walked across the bridge. So it's really a unique design, and it's something that I think is critical for that Greenway area, which is, if you're not aware, is also a part of the Legacy Loop around Colorado Springs. So it's a critical component to us. I will once again assure you from the mayor and certainly three of us here on City Council, no tax dollars are going to be used for this.
Yeah.
We will not do that. Pardon?
For the enhancements.
That's correct, for the enhancements.
The bridge itself not only is good for pedestrian traffic, it really is helpful for America the Beautiful Park. That park is one of our real jewels in the city, and currently it is underutilized. And part of the reason why it's underutilized, it's hard to get to, and there's limited parking there. By putting in a good pedestrian bike connection to America the Beautiful Park, we can begin to use the abundant parking we have downtown on weekends to make our festivals and things that we do in America the Beautiful Park much easier to get to.
So, Kathleen, my concern, great to hear that, we put a cap on it. But my concern is basically all A-list projects belong to the whole board because we can't go to a B until every A is done.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had $1 million and sounds like you're going to get up to 3.5. And so what A-list project is going to suffer down the road? Because while we have this great revenue trajectory right now, some of us have been here when it was exactly the opposite.
I was right there with you, by the way. I've seen more bad times than good times in my tenure here. So first of all, we're not taking money from any existing A-list project. We'll only look at increased revenue and only a portion of increased revenue to put on this project. The second thing is that I do have program money that would be available for this project as far as pedestrian connections, bicycle connections, that type of thing. So we can also look at some of the program money. And we have some other areas that we're looking at for money as well. But no, it's not my intention of stopping any A-list project. I think the truth of the matter is the city does an excellent job of not only coming back to the board and asking for more money when our budgets go over, but first looking at those projects and saying, have we gone a little overboard with this project? Have we turned it into something bigger than it should be? And do we need to tone it down a little bit so that we're not asking for quite so much money? It's our intention as a city to get through that A-list as fast as we can.
And recognize that a bridge or a project is not, particularly this one's actually one of the smaller, is not going to be the end of A-list projects in another 6.5 years because we anticipated getting through the A-list in 7.5 years. But this compounded on with other projects that are coming in, if we suck up all that excess money right now, we'll be lucky to get to our A-list projects.
I think if you look over our recent history and certainly what we're projected to do, I probably will end up spending $3.5 million of our traffic engineering program money on existing PPRTA projects to aid budgets. So, for example, every time there's a PPRTA project that includes signals, I will usually use my signal upgrade money from PPRTA rather than upgrading something completely different, use it on the signals that are needed for a PPRTA project to save that money from another PPRTA project. For example, West Colorado Avenue will have 2 new signals and 1 signal upgrade. I will use my program money to do that rather than use PPRTA money, and that will save PPRTA $750,000 on that project. I do that on a pretty regular basis.
Okay. We'll go to Councilmember Murray and then Councilmember Bagley.
Well, first of all, we the CAC, a written answer to the questions I asked.
Okay.
I think that's terribly, they were unconvinced after the process was done. So back to stage 1. All right, we agreed to build a bridge. We didn't say how much it was going to cost or where it was going to go, but we committed certain sums of money to the bridge. And according to this, mission creep went from $1 million to $3.5 million. Okay, and they argue very convincingly and said clarity. Where's the clarity of the project? And part of the question I've got when you say that because there's limited parking, well, there's no parking on the other side of the bridge. Okay, right, adjacent to it. So are you now adding the garages that we haven't discussed? Or are you talking
Absolutely
about all the
not.
parking further up the block in the back? So the distance, the further you bring the distance away from the bridge, the further you kind of negate the process of having that particular process. And if the property on the other side goes to a developer, that further exacerbates a parking situation that we're supposed to be relieving with the bridge. So there's a level of clarity here that we all need to see, and part of that clarity is funding, okay, about the entire process before we should even proceed. Again, first order priority should be answer the honest questions that were presented here, which has created the concept that we're funding something that we shouldn't have to fund under these particular circumstances. So if anything else, I'd like to recommend to the board that we see in writing the answers to the questions I ask. Is that fair enough? I mean, there's 4 questions there, A, B, C, D.
I believe the CAC has been told several times the history of this bridge and how far back it goes. They were informed the last time when we approved the original A-list project and asked for $1 million. They had the same questions and were told and showed the Greenway Master Plan from the early 1990s. I don't know what to do with them if they somehow think that the Olympic Museum was in the works before that Greenway Master
It's not
Plan.
the Olympic Museum, ma'am. It's, okay, percentage of cost, issues. It's a question of the additional funding, which is, again, we're all concerned about. You don't want to put money into a partially funded project. Okay, so all we ask is the fact everybody be included in a process that explains how it's being funded, and that it's being 100% funded and not just partially funded. And again, I think it's our board's responsibility to ensure that every project we agree to is 100% funded, or else don't give it money. It's just simple as that.
Speaking from the county side and the PPRTA side, we don't go out to bid on a project till we have the funding. So, I think that's already in place, so.
So we allocate the funding and then.
And if the funding isn't there to complete the whole project, something has to change. Happens regularly where we allocate X and bid comes back at X plus, and so then you have to make decisions.
Well, again, I'm just honoring the advisory committee's questions, and they look like they could use more elaborated answers, and that would help us make determination.
Thank you. Councilmember Bagley?
I've got one statement and maybe kind of a question, but it seems like to me, and if my memory is correct, we went through this about this time last year, and you provided at that time the old documents of the plans.
Yes.
So that question had been answered at least this time last year.
Yes.
And we went through the funding. And it appears to me that you've answered the questions, for me anyway, is that the funding is going to come from private sources for the remainder of it, and that this is a very crucial and critical, and has been in the plans for years, connection between America the Beautiful Park and downtown. Whether there's a museum there or not, It's
Yes.
the connection. And the bridge, the museum being there is just gravy, which is good gravy,
Yeah.
but still just gravy.
It's cream cheese frosting.
Yeah, cream cheese or icing on the cake or whatever. But, I didn't bring the documentation that you provided this time last year of the historical background on it, but I have it somewhere. So, thank you.
Trustee Stevens and then Commissioner Clark.
I think that the comments that Commissioner Heisey made about the downstream impact of putting the money here and how that affects the A-list are very valid, and I appreciate your response to that. I think that that's something to keep our eye on and make sure that we're continuing to move down that list. And granted, I know that when we have a project, we don't necessarily, we take a stab at what those numbers are, but it does concern me when we continue to add money higher on the list without paying any attention to, not any, but as much attention to the impact it may have further down the list. Secondly, I think that this is a very worthwhile project. It is definitely been in the plans for so long, as well as it's a multimodal connection to downtown, and also brings into a brilliant connection to a major investment that our region's making at Cimarron.
Yes.
And I think that that's a vital piece and connection to help revitalize our region. And I think that it's a regional project, and some people may not be as supportive of a pedestrian or bike bridge, but I think that it's something that is being recognized for one of the assets of our region, and we need to continue to invest in that and make that better. And I think that the approach of putting a limited amount of money as to what the amount that would typically be put in there and then enhanced by private dollars is a strong approach, because it's through private partnerships like this, private-public partnerships, that we achieve great things.
Commissioner Clark?
Just a couple of comments, and I agree, Kathleen, that this has been on the plan for many, many years, probably prior to my even going over to your house for a while, and the Downtown Action Plan and many other plans. And I remember conversations actually with Terry Harris when he was the county administrator and I was at the city, talking about the corridor that would go to America the Beautiful Park, which at that time was Confluence Park, which was a whole other discussion for another day. However, on a couple of questions that I have, you applied for a Tiger grant, I believe. Yes. Is that already done? Have we heard? Is there any chance? I mean, it's probably not likely. My knowing, kind of, I guess, us knowing how competitive those Tiger grants are.
And we did apply, and we should hear in October. Okay. The list for Tiger grants. The grant writers in Colorado Springs wish that I were more optimistic on Tiger grants, but I'm not. I'm really pessimistic.
Yeah. The small amount nationwide, I mean, if you really think about how much. And
it is.
Yeah.
I think there might be some other grant openings in the next year that are better suited for this.
And I just, I guess, based on some of the conversation, we just need to be cautious, too, about how we phrase it's not tax dollars, because Tiger grants would be tax dollars, too. They just wouldn't be our local tax dollars, so we just need to be careful about how we say that. I just wondered where that was in the process, and I'm not optimistic either, knowing that it's because that's why we were opposed to transportation being block grant, because then it puts it in a competitive nature versus just an allocation that would come to us. So just kind of wondered where that was. And if we look at the list, and I'm not advocating one way or the other for the project itself, for the bridge, but if we look down the list, things come in more than when we think once we put the pencil to the paper and actually do the design work. Going back to even the Cimarron Bridge, another famous bridge that we all know about at this board, that came in more than what was estimated in the original PPRTA. So, but we got that done, and it looks nice, and it's doing its job. So I just wanted to find out where we were on that Tiger grant. And program money is probably still tax dollars, too. It's just, different sources come from different places.
Eventually it all has to come out of
But
the
I do
pocket.
agree that, it would be a worthwhile project. The question is at what level and then who's going to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the questions too from Councilman Murray. I think they're valid as well.
We will continue to look for where we can find savings for our A-list projects. For example, another place that we have saved already on one project, we have another one coming up next year that we'll try to save on, is getting right-of-way dedication from developers and getting escrow funds from right-of-way for curb and gutter costs and some of the pavement costs from developers on roads that we're building. So we continue to look for every place we can to hold our costs down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bennett?
Yeah, just one
Kathleen?
brief comment. Just want Kathleen to affirm this, just so you know the escalation of the cost. You can estimate putting a bridge across Fountain Creek, like the bicycle bridge. This is across the railroad.
It is.
And the railroads have certain standards, and that has escalated the cost.
It is. It's 230 feet in length. It's 25 feet from the bottom of the structure, so that doesn't include the structure depth. And it has to be built basically in place off to the side at America the Beautiful Park, and then we will gather up, say, the PPRTA board, and we're all going to go and lift it and put it into place on foundations that have already been poured across the railroad tracks so that we don't have to close the railroad yard. When we put the seed money in for $1 million, that seemed like good seed money considering we've never built $1 million pedestrian bridge in the history of the city of Colorado Springs. And once we really looked at what it was going to be, we realized, boy, it really was just seed money.
Yeah. And Kathleen, one other real quick question, kind of a technical question, but are we doing any kind of wind studies on that long a bridge with the shape that it's going to have? You're going to have some lifting bodies in there that there may be some anomalies with the wind.
We are, and they are considering that. If you haven't seen a drawing of it, let me know and I'll show you one. It is a very pretty, sleek shape that does an incredible job of complementing the Julie Penrose Fountain in America the Beautiful Park and the Olympic Museum building itself. So it does a really nice job of complementing those two iconic designs that we already have.
Mayor?
Thank you. So thank you for that introduction, too, about how long this has been talked about, and so I didn't know any of that, and I appreciate that very much. I also really appreciate the Citizen Advisory Committee. In Manitou Springs, we depend so much on our advisory committees, and I try to honor that as much as possible. Doesn't always work out, but I try to as much as possible. Very much so appreciate your points and your thoughts as well to support them. Just one point of clarification. So I'm pretty sure you said 3.5 million
Yes.
will be the cap?
Yes.
Right? So do we, in a motion or in paperwork or whatever, basically need to have that written somewhere that's so that it doesn't come back to us and have to, if there's different people on the board or whatever, right? And they're saying, well, but times have changed or whatever. If we're honoring that and our vote is based on that, that should probably be written somewhere.
I would really appreciate that, but you also have my assurance that as we look for private money and as we look for other grant money, if I can drop down that 3.5 so that it's not all from PPRTA, I will.
Thank you. Final comment, Councilmember Murray.
Well, again, what I'm trying to broach here is that we can't put the bridge in until they build up the property across the street for the Olympic Museum. So these are intrinsically tied projects. All right, so as we discuss this thing, we should never stop without looking at the fact is the museum has got to be there. Okay, not the building itself, but you got to build up the ground and the foundation for this thing because they're integral pieces. So without knowing where this whole project lies right this minute, we're saying, okay, fine, we'll put the 3.5 million into it, and then whatever happens, what happens? Is that how we're saying things? So again, we've got to talk to how we're going to synchronize the process. Is there money for the Olympic Museum? If there's not, there's no money for the bridge, right? Isn't that how it works? Okay? Are we going to build the bridge without the museum, if that's the case?
That's been the plan for decades.
That was the plan in 1992. I should say, though, that the Olympic Museum is designing, and fairly well along with their design, for a pedestrian plaza area that will serve as the east landing to the bridge. Working with the Olympic Museum people and their architects, I think that they're that close to their final hurdle on funding. But if they don't make it, and if that just falls apart and goes away, what they're willing to do is build our east landing for it. If that goes away, what it means is that we'll need to put in the east landing for that bridge to bring people to the intersection of Vermejo and Sierra Madre.
Okay, so what I've just heard was that what is not included in the 9.7 right now, okay, is the build-up of the property, to build it up 27 feet, I think is what it was, or approximately 27 feet on the Sierra Madre side to act as a foundation for this particular bridge. So it's 9.7 plus this property if the museum is not built. So we understand that we're talking, what, 10, 11 million?
That I can't answer you, but they have a fairly elaborate pedestrian plaza. It can certainly be built with a simpler staircase and elevator.
Okay, just considerations. I'll think. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jennifer, do you have El Paso County? By the way, welcome, engineer.
Thank you, sir.
For those of you that missed it,
Congratulations.
Jennifer now carries that title officially.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Board. Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer. I'll go ahead and maybe if you turn to page 12, that will help me speak to the beginning of my presentation. This first table is essentially the capital program budget for the first tranche, or the first set of capital projects. And just want to let you see there that we're not adding additional revenue, and we're not asking for any line item transfers at this point. Essentially, we're showing you the actual carryover from 2016. And what I would say about that is that we have Mark Shuffle that's currently under construction, so you'll see that carryover that is currently being spent, and several of these projects, including County Line, Stapleton, and Meridian, those projects are essentially complete. We're closing out some of those projects, and at some point in the future, we'll be coming to you with some line item transfers, and we'll probably put any additional, any excess money either in Mark Shuffle South, because that's an ongoing construction project, or we'll be putting it into that capital pool that has been established. So just want to let you know where we are. The only other project that we haven't started yet is the Meridian Road project. That is actually under design, and hopefully you've heard about this, but we've talked about it several times. But that project will be coordinated with the second one of the projects in the second tranche of the capital program, which is the New Meridian US 24 project. We're coordinating those projects because the coordination and integration of these projects will reduce an overall project cost, because they're right adjacent to each other and they're kind of dependent on each other. So, and anticipate moving that into construction in 2017 or 2018. So, gives you a good understanding of where we are in wrapping up those final 2005 to 2014 capital projects. Then if you go to page 13 and 14, that's the kind of the summary of our capital program budget for the second tranche of the capital projects. So what I would call your attention to is that we have some carryover from last year in those project budgets. As you know, PPRTA is a pay-as-you-go, so some of those projects are under design right now, so we have some carryover. What you'll see in the next column is our original budget allocation for those projects, and then what I'll call your attention to is the allocation of additional revenues, and we're putting all of our $1.2 million into the Highway 105 project. We are budgeting that project. It's an we have an overall budget for that project of $18 million, so we're not increasing the project budget, but we're just advancing the money to that project sooner than we had expected since we had additional revenues. Hopefully that makes sense. And what I would say on all of our project budgets for the second round of the capital program, we have not increased at this point any of our project budgets. As Beverly mentioned, they're looking at doing some different policy on how we increase those project budgets. At this time, all of our projects are either not started or in the design phase, so no reason to come to you for additional increases in the project budgets at this time. And then the last is our maintenance program, and you'll see that on page 15. You'll look at our 2016 original allocation budget. It's $8.3 million, and we're well underway with all of our maintenance programs. If you look at our 2015 unspent budget, we had an actual carryover of $2.3 million. What I will say about that is that about 1.7 of that was kind of already programmed for this year for the maintenance portion of the Mark Scheffel project down south there that we're doing from Link Road and a little bit north. That is a part of the project that we funded with maintenance dollars because it wasn't part of the capital project, but we coupled that together with that project because it made sense to do that maintenance on that portion of that Mark Scheffel Road together with the capital project. And then, so just want to let you know, we usually don't carry over that amount, but that was kind of programmed for this year for that project. And then the 2015 revenue carryover, about $500,000, which is about typical for what we carry over. And then also the additional $256,000 that we received from the additional revenues, we're going to put towards maintenance this year. We haven't identified that for any specific project at this point. As we are continuing with our maintenance program, we may be adding that in either to pavement overlay or some chip seal is what I anticipate. And if we don't spend it, we'll carry it over and spend it next year. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And directors, the other member governments have submitted, and we have that in the packet. I will now open the draft or the amendment to the budget. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If so, please come to the mic. Stan?
Thank you very much. I think most of you know me, but it's Stan Vanderwerf, and it's just a couple of real quick questions, so this will be very brief. This relates to page 7 and page 8 regarding the PPRTA budget amendment for transit. And just some wording in here. This is that $1.433 million budget, and in the wording, it says it's budgeted to maintain these service improvements for at least 5 years with transit reserves. And my question is, based on that wording, I'm not 100% sure if it's $1.4 million per year or $1.4 million for all 5 years together. And I was just interested in a clarification on that. And it might be that that is the total amount and only a fifth of it more or less gets spent every year. I just wanted to understand that, because if it is $1.4 million for 1 year, you might actually be committing yourselves to another $1.4 million for 4 additional years and maybe not realize it. So I would submit that the board maybe ask that question and make sure that it's clear. The other quick point, it's very brief. With regard to the PPRTA issue for the bridge and the City for Champions, knowing that the Gazette was inaccurate in their article, might be worthwhile either for the PPRTA or maybe the city to submit a correction to the Gazette so that the rumor doesn't continue to spread with the wrong understanding. And those are my 2 points. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience would like to comment during the public hearing portion? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do we have an answer on the transit question?
First of all, thank you for the comment. Yes, it is, and I'm glad you pointed out the transit reserve part because I forgot to mention that. The actual service cost for those 4 options, what we're looking at is about $250,000 on an annualized basis. So that's $250,000. So what the budget allows for within that $703,000 on the numbers page, we have enough money in this year's budget to pay for about 2 years, a little over 2 years within the current budget. Then we're also looking at drawing down our transit reserve on basically a responsibly draw down our reserve level. So really it's a combined transit reserve and the current year of funding to pay for 5 years worth of service. But the current, what we are looking at, the $1.4 million is all we're asking for to add the service. So we will not be asking for $1.4 million every year on an annualized basis.
Thank you. Councilmember Bennett?
I would move approval of the draft amendment to the 2016 budget.
Second.
Pardon?
May I make a public comment?
I would have preferred you to have done it when I had public comment open.
Sorry. Thank you.
Can I say something before we vote on those motions?
Yes.
I guess this is the proper way to do it. Mr. Bennett, would you be willing to amend your motion to include, I guess, written commitment that the 3.5 is the cap that they'll be asking for? Okay, thank you.
And I would second that also.
Okay. Trustee Stevens?
On a more philosophical level, I think it's important for this board to recognize and pay attention to the carryover issue. We've been, since our inception, we've been carrying very significant balances in our bank accounts, and I think that the sooner that we can collect the tax dollars and then immediately spend them on projects that benefit the public as intended, the better. And I know that there's a time gap there, but I think generally, if we could work in this next cycle of capital projects to hasten that a little bit and shorten that, we ideally should be struggling with managing cash flow because we're ready to have projects hit the ground and we're ready to go. There's a lot to be said for collecting those dollars from the public soon and putting them right to work, and there's not a whole lot of benefit to the public. We don't collect significant interest that makes it worthwhile. Construction projects, costs go up, so I just make the comment that we should be trying to push our balances as low as possible by completing projects quickly.
That's a good point. Yep.
Thank you. Other comments from the board? Call the roll. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries with Councilmember Murray in opposition.
Request, so no.
Item number 9, capital 2016 capital maintenance and public transportation contracts, City of Colorado Springs.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we've approved the budget, but you didn't approve the resolution appropriating the sums of money.
Oh,
So if we could just rewind for a half a second.
thank you.
Love attorneys, love them.
We'll do that next year.
So I do.
Okay. I move approval of a resolution to, a PPRTA resolution to adopt the amended budget, and do I need to add something to that?
It's actually the resolution to appropriate the sums of money to the various funds.
I so move.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
no.
Thank you. That passes with Councilmember Murray in opposition. Okay, 9A.
Mike Chavez, City Engineering. If you would grant me the latitude, I'd like to maybe discuss contracts 9, 10, 11, and then go back to the first 8.
Sir.
Okay. So we have 3 contracts for your approval. The first one is construction contract contract to Kiewit Infrastructure for the Centennial reconstruction. The total bid came in about 9.1 or 2. We are awarding the 2 segments that we're reconstructing. At this point, the 3rd segment is a mill and overlay of the southern third of Centennial, and we will be awarding that later in the year or next year, but I didn't want to, I couldn't raid any more money out of this year's budget, so, or appropriate. So we're looking at awarding at this time a $8 million contract to Kiewit. The next one is for construction management to Wilson Company to oversee that project for $967,000. That's about 10% of the contract price, construction price, so it's in line with what we're seeing for construction management and inspections. And then the last item is final design services for AECom to finish up the Pikes Peak Avenue reconstruction project that we are underway now.
Thank you. Any questions on those 3?
I actually,
Commissioner Clark?
somewhat on this, on one of these 3. On the Centennial Boulevard, remind me what the original estimate was on the construction of Centennial?
The original, the budget that's in the, that was on the ballot was about $7 million, 7.2 or 7.4. A couple of things have happened there is, one, we have had a 72-inch CMP, 2,600 linear feet of it from South Douglas Creek to Garden of Gods that in the design process we looked at, and
The CMP is what?
corrugated metal pipe. And most of the corrugated metal pipe in the city and probably in the county is rusting away. So that was not something we were aware of when we put the initial numbers together, but we had to fix that manner. We didn't want to spend all this money to rehab a street and then have it more sinkholes come through like happened last summer. That pipe, the sinkhole on Centennial was from this pipe. So we looked at a couple things. Replacement was costly, also was going to throw off our timing. So we looked at an option to put a structural liner with a resin structural liner, which we did, and gave us about 30 years of life on that pipe. But that was about $1.4 million.
So Mike, if I might, just going to wrap this up, so
Yeah.
I don't need to know everything about how the widget's made. But in terms of the initial cost and then what you're looking at now based on what you're seeing in the design and the needs for the project, what's the new number at?
It's $12 million.
So it went from
About
7.4 to about 12
yeah,
million.
with
Okay.
that pipe, and then the construction costs are coming in very high. Kiewit even said they weren't real busy, because a lot of times when everyone's busy, they get high price. They said they weren't real busy, but I think the labor, materials, and probably their subs were raising the price.
And my question wasn't necessarily to just
No, I'm just
question why. I mean, because I know there are reasons why, but I think that just gives us kind of a little more understanding of why sometimes these projects come in higher once they're designed, and you find, it's like Old House Journal. You go to change a light bulb and you end up rewiring your house. That's just sort of the way it happens, especially in some of these older areas of town like this. So I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
For simplicity's sake, when we reach that point, I think I'd like to have a motion on 9, 10, and 11, and then we'll deal with the others separately. Councilmember Bennett?
Yeah, Mike, I don't remember if I've told you this or not, but if you look at Centennial, and this is something I want to make you aware of, because I don't want it to cause you extra expense in the future. If you come from Centennial southbound, you come all the way up to the top of the hill just before you get to where the Planned Parenthood and those buildings are in there. If you look to the right, there's significant groundwater that's actually going over the sidewalk and onto the street. And it's been doing that for years. And the significance of it, I mean, you can find it because there's cattails growing in it. That's how long it's been there. I just don't want you to find out later that groundwater is going to undermine a portion.
Yes, and we are aware of that. That spring's been there for us. I moved to that neighborhood in 1990. We have some under drains to intercept that in our design.
I'd be willing to make a move to approve items 9, 10, and 11.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Anyone in the audience on this side, these three items? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And do you need another motion on the rest of it?
Well, I think Mike wanted to address that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
The city is kind of moving in a different direction of how it does its procurement of consultant work. Typically, we had a list of about 50 to 75 consultants who had an on-call contract that we could issue task orders up to $100,000, or we would, have to go up to an RFP process. That kind of limited us. Either we had to just do small projects with on-call, or take 2 months to put a RFP package out and select and all that. So what we have done is we've gone to a process where we're selecting a smaller number of consultants that'll have an on-call contract, which has a higher limit. It's on the city side, it's going to be $500,000 per task order, with a $3 million cap per year per consultant. And we've brought 8 of these to you today. We're also looking next month to bring in about 30 more for general engineering services, construction management, structure, and design, different disciplines. And so we happen to have the stormwater ones just out in front. So what we're looking at doing is the city's approved these for the $500,000 limit, but we want the board to approve these contracts so we could use them, but we also are asking for that limit to be raised up to $200,000, just to give us a little more flexibility. And I think an example of why the higher limit would be very useful for us is that when the Chestnut Bridge blew out last year, we were able to we hired HDR. We used the on-call contract. We issued them a $100,000 task order, and we got them started. But $100,000, they went through that pretty quick. So we had to kind of hurry up and get a full scope from them for the next board meeting so we can bring that for approval. If we have a little bit higher limit, $200,000, we would have been able to get them started, and we could have maybe just taken a little more time to go through the process and scope things out, and it just created a lot of stress on us as far as time, because we were trying to meet the board. So the higher limit just gives a little more flexibility to be able to get projects started. There was concern, of raising the limit. I think it came last month, or Corey did, for $500,000, and that didn't seem to be too appealing. So we thought $200,000 is a good compromise, where it gives us flexibility but isn't such a high number that hopefully the board and the CAC are more comfortable with. The other thing is we talked at the CAC last week. Rick monitors these, and he sees that. So there is oversight. There is some checks and balances on the monies being spent. And the fact that they're called stormwater, but they're general use. We just happen to have these first, and they're more geared toward companies that are have especially in hydraulics, but they're meant to be an on-call general with a specialty in stormwater.
Councilmember Bennett?
Yeah, I certainly don't have a problem with the $200,000 limit. I do have a problem with the word stormwater, and the reason is that it confuses the public to thinking that the city is using PPRTA money to do their stormwater work, and we're not doing that. That's being done out of our general fund, and I just think we need to find a better word, because I think if I was to read this in the Gazette, I would jump to a conclusion, and we need to, if we could use different language that's accurate, that wouldn't cause the public to jump to a conclusion that's inaccurate. I think it would give greater credibility to the PPRTA in the city.
Okay.
I share that concern. If I were looking to throw stones somewhere, I'd find this and I'd say the city just took $24 million out of their transportation fund for stormwater.
And it's not true.
No, and,
We had quite a discussion years back.
yeah.
You absolutely have to deal with water where you build a road. You know, so that's all very appropriate, but
And I understand that, I agree.
Okay.
You know, the batch that we're bringing next month is going to be on-call structural and bridge, on-call general. So they just, they have a name. I'm not sure if we can do anything about that.
Well, would this be part of taking the advice of the Citizen Advisory Committee and tabling it till August until there's better clarification and more accurate?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm not sure. The simple answer is we just changed that, but I'm not sure if we can at this point.
We have to amend the contracts because they're city approved.
Councilmember Murray?
The specific word is oversight, and so blank like this kind of voids our oversight responsibilities. I think that's what we're physically here for. And the other question is that, do the option years commit us as a board over the years? See, it's their option to accept or deny. Is it our option to accept or deny? Or with this vote, are we approving 5 years?
No, you're approving 1 year, and we come back to renew it.
So each year you'll come back
Yes.
with each one of these contracts and demonstrate. See, then, again, how does this thing really work? They come back, show us what they did during the last year and that they were not stormwater related, and then we approve the next year contract? Or how are you
Well,
saying?
actually, as we issue task orders, they're going to go to Rick to see, and he would flag if we used it. But like I said, the intent is to use these consultants on an RTA project if there's a bridge or stormwater component.
And I recognize your problem. You know, the contracts go to the county commissioners before they come here. So if we change something here, it'd probably have to go back to the county commissioners. But I'm not willing to jeopardize the whole RTA program because of that inconvenience.
Can this wait a month?
Yes, it can. I guess what is the board looking, like I said, as far as if we can't?
We need to change
Change.
the language.
Stormwater.
We
Yeah.
don't approve stormwater contracts here. We approve transportation
Okay.
contracts.
Which,
And I understand.
yeah, it's.
I get it.
Yeah, no, yeah, and all right.
But we've got to tie it to the transportation, not tie it to the stormwater.
It's critical.
Okay, well, we can do that, and I will see what we can do to make it more palatable.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, no motion on the first eight.
Motion to
tabling
table,
that.
or you don't have a motion, but okay.
We'll- He withdrew it.
Got it, okay.
Thanks, Mike.
It was withdrawn by the city.
Got it.
9B, El Paso County.
Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County. Today we have three contracts for your consideration. The first item is our 2016 crack seal program. This contract is for $30,000 from the county's maintenance fund, and it's to purchase crack seal material. We will be purchasing crack seal material for our crews to utilize and put on the roads. So this is a material only. The second item is for the Monument Hill Road Improvement Project, and this is a purchase order amendment for our preliminary design services. As we were proceeding through preliminary design, we looked at some different options for that roadway and have determined that it would be cheaper to install some retaining walls along that roadway instead of getting into a lot of commercial property along that roadway. So as we looked through those options, we didn't include a sum for preliminary retaining wall design in the initial contract because we weren't sure if it was necessary. At this time, we've kind of determined that it's probably cheaper to do those retaining walls, so we want to include that. And that is for a cost of $63,725. That includes geotechnical and preliminary design for those retaining walls. The third item is for our Mark Shuffle Road South improvements, and this is a purchase order amendment with our design firm Parsons Brinkerhoff for $190,000. This is for additional design that we might encounter during construction, some additional property acquisition services that we need as we're finalizing those, additional surveying services, and most of the monies is for additional design services if we need it as we go through the construction. So it's an allowance, and we will only use it if we actually need it at the rates of the contract. So if you have any questions about that, we'd be happy to answer those. I would be happy to answer those.
Questions?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 10, report. Actually, this is not a report. This is appoint a representative to CDOT's US 24 East Planning and Environmental Linkage Study. I understand this was discussed last month.
Yes.
I don't know if
We have elected Dan Sotomayor to step into that, and then Turner Smith, Dan's going to be on the technical side of it, and then Turner is going to be, I don't know if there was two positions there, or...
that's kind of Beverly. We've lost Rick here. Do you recall what that?
I believe it's only one position,
Okay.
Okay.
but maybe, I don't know if we can share it. I mean, it's
An alternate,
Okay.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, so it'll be Turner Smith and Dan Sotomayor from Raymond.
Which will be the
Dan Sotomayor will be the...
primary? Because if they both show up, only one gets to vote.
Right, right.
Yeah. Okay.
The letter on the back indicates defining your
Or
representative.
they get a half vote.
Okay.
I can help with that.
Yes.
Jennifer Irvin, there are two separate kind of subgroups, just to let you know. There's an executive type, and then there's a technical committee. So there may be, two, but I think what they were asking for is a representative from this for the executive. So I'm not CDOT, but we're, as the county, also involved in that study as well.
Okay.
Should that be Turner then?
Well, the executive side, then that would be Turner Smith
Okay.
for the executive side of that.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay.
I move approval of Turner Smith as our representative on the CDOT's US 24 East Planning and Environmental Linkage Study.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And see, he should have been here. That's what happens when you don't show
That's
up.
isn't that the truth? Staff field review report. Welcome, Rick.
Rick Sonnenberg, Pikes Peak RTA Program Contracts Manager. This is the quarterly staff field review report where I go out and double check that work has been done that's been reported by member governments. Quarterly report. And it's in your packet, and I'll take any questions you might have. This is just an information item.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bringing us to item number 11, City of Colorado Springs Transit Services Monthly Update. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Brian Vituli, City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit with your monthly transit update. For our local fixed route services for the month of May of 2016, we were up 11.6% over May of 2015. For our ADA powered transit services, we were up 5.6% over that same time period. And for our van pool services, we showed a 12.2% decrease during that time period, which we're attributing to lower fuel prices and potentially some commuters moving to the CDOT Mustang service. But we've seen a trend over the last several months of van pool services decreasing over the same period before. I have two brief project updates. Last month, you heard that we started our downtown transit station relocation study in March of this year. We started that with a kickoff meeting and then followed by two focus group meetings made up of the stakeholders. Since then, we have two committees that are involved with the study. A technical advisory group, which is made up of a lot of city staff. We have planning staff, traffic engineering, park staff, and then a lot of Mountain Metro facilities and operations folks involved. Then we also have a stakeholder working group, which is a broad group of representatives from the community that are involved with the project. So both of those committees or working groups have had two meetings. The consultant team has finished the site selection criteria and actually performed a level 1 screening of around 30 sites that were selected looking at some of the previous studies that have been done. Some sites that came out of those studies were still available, some were not. Some new ones showed up. So the screening looked at 30 sites, ended up with about 12 to move forward to a level 2 screening. And a lot of the criteria were pass-fail. Either the sites worked well or they didn't, and if they didn't, they were kicked out. The level 2 screening will be more of a comparative analysis of those 12 remaining sites, and hopefully five or seven will rise to the top as being decent sites, and they'll be compared to each other. And then we'll move on to a level 3 screening, which will hopefully show us, one or two sites to move forward on. We had our first public open house at the end of June. We had about 30 to 40 attendees to that. There's a project website listed under that item in your memo, coloradosprings.gov/metro station, so you can visit that frequently and see all of the feedback from the open houses and the minutes of the meeting, the working group meetings, and you can follow along with that. We're planning to present to City Council on Monday, July 25th, to give an update on that process. And the project should be done by September. So it was a very quick project, and we hope to move forward with one or two sites, hopefully at one public site, city-owned site, and one private site. And then following that, move forward with property acquisition and design, and if all things go well, construction by 2018. We're being very optimistic this time. And also, we are in the middle of our fall 2016 service change public meeting process. This brochure was handed out several weeks ago through the community, announcing the 3 public meetings that we're having. We had our first 2 yesterday. We'll have our final one tomorrow evening at City Hall Council Chambers. This brochure identifies what we're proposing, and you heard a little bit of that earlier with Land's budget amendment presentation. So we're looking to add service on a few Saturday routes, frequency improvements on Route 7 and 27. We're adding weekday evening and Sunday service on Route 4 and Saturday service on Route 39. Again, these are services that we can improve without the addition of any new vehicles. So we're using the vehicles that we have on hand right now until we get new vehicles in. And a lot of the other improvements are scheduling modifications. This is feedback that we got from our spring service changes. Scheduling adjustments that can be made to improve our riders' experience, make the connections better, and spending less time commuting. There are 2 route modifications. Route 5, we're looking to move it from Weber Street to Wasatch Street. as it enters and exits the downtown transit terminal. This, again, was feedback from our spring service changes. There's a large senior housing facility that, with some of the changes that were implemented in the spring, some of the seniors who use transit would have to walk a further distance and would have to walk uphill. So this change should alleviate that. And then due to significant public feedback in the Old North End neighborhood along North Nevada Avenue, where we just instituted 15-minute transit service in the spring, there's been a lot of pushback to that, the result of our city council hearing a lot of public comment on that. We've had a neighborhood town hall with them. We had a follow-up meeting with some of the residents leading up that issue. We're proposing two options. One is moving Route 19 from Nevada Avenue. Currently, there are two routes operating on Nevada Avenue, Route 9 and Route 19. Both of them have 30-minute service, but the way they're scheduled, it results in 15-minute service. Option one is to move Route 19 one block to the east on Weber. So you could have a virtual 15-minute corridor by walking one block to the east or to the west. So you could still have the benefits of that high-frequency service without it really being 15-minute service. And then the Onan recommendation is to go back basically to where we were, to move one Route 9 to Cascade and Route 19 to Wasatch with a 4-block separation, thereby eliminating any semblance of 15-minute transit service. So, the public meetings have been attended very well. We're getting a lot of feedback from the Old North End neighborhood. But there's also a lot of support for keeping things the way they are or to select option one, the Weber, Nevada option. So following tomorrow's final public meeting, we'll be looking at all the feedback we got from that. The public comment period remains open until July 21st. So we'll look at all the comments and then make our recommendation and then get final recommendation from the Chief of Staff and the Mayor. And that will most likely be early August. And then implementation Sunday, September 18th. So it's been a very interesting couple months. But thank you all for your support, and I can answer any questions.
Questions?
I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I just appreciate, first of all, that you adapted to the needs of the seniors. That's just one of those things that matters to me greatly. And also just in general, that public process is not easy. And as someone who uses the bus system fairly regularly, it can be an emotional topic, right? Because you've got plans and you've got a schedule and you want to get there. So I appreciate you taking time to do that.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you very much.
14B, El Paso County Monthly Change Order and Property Acquisition Report.
Again, Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County. We have two acquisitions to report on this month from the same property owner, two separate parcels. We have appraised two of those acquisitions, and the owner did not choose to get their own appraisal, but did accept our initial offer, which was based on our appraisals. So those are the reporting items for this month. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Thank you.
14C, City of Colorado Springs.
Mike Chavez, City Engineering. We have a change order to AECom for water line design on the Centennial Extension project, which CSU will be paying for that change order amount of $127,000.
Very good. Item 12 has been withdrawn. Item 13.
All right,
Attorney.
after months of telling you not much is going on,
basically everything has happened since the last meeting. So I will try to be brief and not confusing with a bunch of legalese to the extent possible. So in the last several months this lawsuit's been going on, it's kind of in the initial very slow phase of litigation where I've had nothing to report to you. On June 17th was the first big deadline that came up, which was the motions for summary judgment. Essentially what that means is when there's a case like this where there's not facts in dispute, where it's not he said, she said, but the facts are undisputed, it's really how does the law get applied to those facts. And so all the parties put their briefs together, their motions for summary judgment, and give their best argument to the court why they're right in their interpretation of the law, and try to compel the judge to rule in their favor as to their reading of the law. So all of those motions were filed on June 17th by all the parties, with DOR and PPRTA obviously arguing that the tax continues, Walmart, Sam's Club, and UTW claiming that the sales tax was cut off by the annexation by the City of Fountain. I won't get deep into the legal reasoning and wrangling in all those briefs because I could probably keep you here well past dinner time with what I think are interesting facts. But also on June 17th, Peter Forbes, who's the special counsel that the PPRTA engaged, he also submitted a motion for determination of standing. That gets to the issue of whether or not Walmart and Sam's Club actually have standing to bring the lawsuit. This is something we'd mentioned to you early on in the litigation, that because they aren't actually paying the sales tax, it's actually the customers that pay the sales tax, that there's a question in our minds of whether or not they actually could bring the lawsuit. This was brought to their attention several months ago with the proposition that they might want to join a taxpayer, which was not, they didn't follow up on that. So Peter brought it to the court's attention and suggested that they may not have standing and that the court might want to dismiss the case in its entirety. So those are all pending. Also on June 17th, UTW, who was the property owner entity when this lawsuit started, who has since transferred the parcel, the property underlying the businesses in question, that property has been transferred to the Walmart entity. So UTW has filed a motion to dismiss. They want to get out of the case. They say they have no relevance to the case anymore because they don't own the property. On June 8th, or actually I'll just continue that line. So yesterday, Peter filed a motion in opposition of UTW's motion to dismiss because they still own property in the area. They initiated the lawsuit, and so we don't want to have the same problem with the next parcel that's developed. We want to keep them in the litigation. In the alternative, he asked the judge that if he did grant their motion to dismiss, that they'd be on the hook for a portion of our legal costs.
Yes.
Okay. Going back to the timeline, then on July 8th, which was just last week, all the parties then have a chance to respond in opposition to each other's motions for summary judgment. So essentially, PPRTA, we submitted a motion saying, well, we think Walmart and Sam's Club are wrong for these reasons. On the flip side, they submitted one saying, they think we're wrong for these reasons. So those were all filed as well. Upcoming, and yesterday, a joint motion was filed by all the parties, which would convert the trial that's set for September 9th to a hearing on cross motions for summary judgment. Basically what that means is asking the court to recognize that we don't need to call witnesses, we don't need to have interrogatories, we don't need to be all cross-examining everyone's witnesses because there aren't any facts in dispute. So it's a big cost savings. It drops a bunch of deadlines, it drops witnesses, it drops the trial date. Actually, while we were sitting here today, the judge ruled on that order and granted that order. So that's done. There's one more set of briefs that will come out, and those are due July 15th, and that's sort of everyone's final word. So it's their chance to rebut the rebuttal. So to say why they really weren't wrong the first time they said that they weren't wrong. So those are due on the 15th, and that's really the last set of motions, and at that point, it's fair game for the judge to rule at any time. it's dependent on judge by judge. Some judges will want to get it off their docket quickly. This judge might actually want to bring in all of the litigators and have them answer questions on September 9th and then rule after that. So it's anybody's guess how that's going to work out. So that is everything that's happened in the last 4 weeks.
So can I remove September 9th from my calendar?
Yes. Yes, you may.
Once the judge makes his determination or her determination, whichever it is that the end of it, or is there an appeal process, or
There's always an appeal process. Yeah. So, I don't know. I have no litigation experience, I'm not going to lie. So I don't know what those dates are, but then there's some period of time, it's like 30, 60, 90 days for an appeal to be taken to ask the Court of Appeals to hear it. Once we go through that whole process with the Court of Appeals, there's always a chance to go to the Supreme Court as well if it gets that far. So we'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate you guiding that effort.
Trying not to be confusing.
Great job.
Yeah, agreed. Item 14, PPRTA member announcements. Anything exciting going on other than rodeo tonight?
And County Fair Saturday.
True.
Second weekend in August, we'll have our Rama Days. We're going to have a tractor pull. I'll have some flyers. I was going to get them, and they didn't get pulled. But it'll be the second weekend in August. There's a street breakfast the fire department puts on. It's a donation type deal, whatever you want to pay for it. There's going to be a parade. Stuff going on in the park most of the day, but the big thing will be the tractor pull that'll run from, I think, like 10 until about 3 or 4, depending on how long, how many tractors show. And then there'll be a pulled pork dinner that evening, and I think there were $5 or $6 a plate. You get quite a bit of food with it, and then a dance with the band and a DJ afterwards until.
Very good.
You guys are party animals.
One day a year. That's how I got hooked into this being on radio.
I don't know when that's happening. There's not been discussion. He was requesting the date of the pig roast, and I've not heard any discussion of that, so I'm disappointed to say that
Who does
Green Mountain.
Green Mountain Falls used to.
Oh, wow, buddy, I'm signing me up.
You have to wear a peak hat.
That's right.
That works.
But most
I've got my
importantly is
lawn
Bronc
tractor.
Days.
I'll bring it up to the.
Bronc Days is coming up on July 30th. It moved from the first weekend in August to July 30th, and I think it's the only parade I've ever seen that goes through the town, turns around, and then goes back, and the candy's thrown at the parade participants.
Two shots at candy.
Circles again.
Okay.
That's right.
With that, we are adjourned.
Right, Dennis. See how easy that was?
Oh.